Hello everybody and welcome to the Quilter's Apothecary. Today I am going to show you a wonderful design from my Metropolis series called Cathedral Skyline. Now this design is wonderful to use in those borders that are a little extra wide. Now you can scale it down to use in more narrow borders, but typically the one that I'm going to show you today is something that you want to use if you have a little bit of depth in your space. Also, the other place I like to use this is on some of those modern quilts that have a lot of extra open space that you need to kind of have a design with some meat to it that you can tuck in behind. So let's go over to the machine. Let's check out this wonderful new Art Deco design. To get a little perspective, what I have here is a line sewn, which is going to signify the seam between the body and the border. I'm actually auditioning this version of the Cathedral Skyline design that I've drawn up, and I wanted to use something in a wider border, which is why I came up with this for a higher end custom quilt that's coming up. So to start with, I know that I'm going to go ahead and on each side or each corner I'm going to do cornerstones and just have the border go from the center out. That way I don't have to do any math. And what I've done is I've located the center. This is the center of the border, and that is the seam. So we're going to start in the very center. The tools that we're going to need to complete this border treatment is the Mystical Arc Medium, the Mystical Arc Small, and the Mystical Arc Slim. And those three are going to be used together to set the tone and to lay the base for this beautiful design. I have my thread tied on. I am ready to go. I have my placement here. Here is our middle line. I am going to take the medium mystical arc. I'm going to line the center line right on the center line of the border, and then I'm going to keep this bottom because I'm going to use the whole arc to start this design rather than go shallow. Now if I had a less deep border and I wanted to repeat the same look, then I would start shorter to give myself more room. But we're going to use this whole wide border. So I'm going to line that up. I've got my line here. I've locked my stitches. I'm going to start off with the medium. I am on 12 stitches per inch. I'm going to come up. Now I'm going to thicken this line because I want it to pop. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. And that's going to thicken that line a bit as I come around. 1, 2, 3. All the way down. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm down to the bottom. I'm going to stop, and now I'm going to utilize the small arc. So I'm going to combine sizes. I'm going to line that up exactly the same way. The foot rests right in that cranny that we've created right in the ruler. I'm going to set that there, and now I'm going to repeat the same process. 1, 2, 3, go forward, 1, 2, 3, and all the way down, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to continue all the way over the edge of this border to the end. Slide that in, line it up. One, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I just love that extra pop that 3 times gives the fabric. It just looks beautiful, very showy. Come look at me. Now I'm going to stop that, and again, all the way down to the end now. Okay, so now we are where we would be if this were a cornerstone. So now I'm going to come back to the other end and I'm going to work from the middle to the left. Thus far we have our arcs. Our main arcs are all sewn and I made them a little thicker so they pop. And now what I'm going to do is I want to put a registration mark in the middle of my arcs as well as the cleavage between all of the arcs. So I'm simply going to grab my small because I already have one in the medium. That was my center line. I'm going to line this up and I'm just going to put a little tick right at the top in the middle all the way down from the middle out both directions. And then once I finish that, my next step is I'll grab a straight ruler. I'll make sure to line it up. I want to make sure that I have a nice straight line against the seam so that my line that goes from here and up is perfectly straight. We don't want to run into our dear Eileen. And I'll do that all the way across. Again, in the middle, the cleavage portion, as well as through the middle. The next thing I'm going to do on the way over is I'm going to come to the cleavage point where the arcs meet each other, and I'm going to line up and I'm going to put about a 1/4 inch mark on both sides. 1/4 inch. Slide over and do the same thing. Find my 1/4 inch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be approximate. And this is going to be one of the design elements in the cathedrals where they overlap. Now we have our middle medium and we have our smalls going out both directions. The next step that we're going to do is right here in this spot, I want to create a 3-tier arc coming down. So again, I'm going to center this line right here on the chalk line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down one mark at a time. So I'm here now. That created that main mark. I'm going to slide down one line, keep this centered, and you can see this is the line I'm on now. And I'm going to repeat 1, 2, 3, stop, drop, keep this centered, slide in a little bit, 1, 2, 3, stop, drop, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to then, with that, create this triple arc right there. So let's sew that. Okay, so our next section is going to be right between both of the arcs, and we're going to use the slim arc and we're going to line up this center line with that cleavage line. And of course this bottom portion is going to go right down to the seam line. I'm going to line that up and we're going to go back and forth and back, and it's going to overlap, and that's going to give us this portion of the base. Again, I'm going to line this up so the center is right there, right on the center line, and make sure that I'm right on the seam. And now I'm going to come up and around. And that's where with these slim arcs the handle comes in handy because I've got a nice leverage spot. And I could keep my fingers away from my hopping foot. Now we have our last small arc before we reach the middle, which was the medium arc. So on this one, I'm going to slide over to my spot. And sometimes you have to guesstimate it, and actually for the video I just put a mark there. And then very simply I'm going to take this, but now when I sew this one, I'm going to take it up and around, and I'm going to stop here. Okay, now I've stopped here, and now what I'm going to do when I replace my ruler is I'm actually going to drag thread and start here, and then I'm going to go under, and that's going to give me that underlapped kind of a look. Start, lock my stitches, and come down, touch, back, finish that last little bit, and then what I'll do is I'll slide the ruler again, I'll come back over here, and I'm just going to go ahead and just put a little registration line right there. I'm going to slide over to here, I'm going to put this back in, and then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 just up to the arc, and then drag thread again and go 1, 2, 3, and then continue down to the right across the quilt. The next step for this design is going to be putting this top arc above this arc and this arc, because we're going to mirror both of these sides to create the peak of the cathedral effect. So to do that, what I'm going to do so that I have an access point to get up there and to line things up is I'm going to put a horizontal line across the small arc, tippy top, not the slim and not the medium, but on both sides right across the small arc peak. I'm going to line that up and go all the way across on both sides to make a mark. I have my small arc and my medium arc on the ready. I'm going to go right here next to this middle. I'm going to line this up, and on this new line that we just made, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3 1/4. At least that's what I did for this particular design, and for this particular design it's right on the 2-inch line if you're using the small arc. Now I'm going to line that up right on that solid line, and that'll be the first thing that I sew. Then I will move it, and then I will bring this one up, and it will be the 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4. And then I'm going to do the same thing with that. Two, and again, I'm making sure to get that nice, thick, crisp line. Now, I've got my thick line, so now I'm going to use my medium ruler. And actually, while I'm at it, I'm just going to use that ruler to travel the ditch on the previous, so that now I can find my placement. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4. And so now that's set. Got that lined up. This line is right in the middle. Remember when we made those registration marks earlier? There we go. And I gotta tell you, for something like this, I do really like the adhesive for the back of the ruler. Everything stays nice and in place as I'm sewing. Come down. And back. And now what I'm going to do is I might as well just travel that ditch down. And we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side of this middle arc. So now, the next step, we have this. So we have our two sides. And now we're going to do this mark and this mark, which attaches the right and left peak. We're going to use our medium. We're going to go up here. I'm just going to travel that ditch. And now I am going to go 3 1/4 half-inch mark. So 1, 2, 3, and then that little quarter top. Line that up. Travel that ditch a little more. 1, 2, 3. And then what I'm going to do is come back here, travel that ditch a little more. First I'm going to put on my glasses. Sorry about that. And then I'm going to go up 5 1/2. Or I'm sorry, 5 1/4 of the half-inch mark. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the half-inch marks, and then of course there's that last little 1/4 inch up there. Line that up, and that's going to give me that double peak. Travel my ditch. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. So now I have my double peak, and the next thing I'm going to do is put in the spire. Now for our narrow, I am going to go 5 1/4 inch marks up. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and one more. So it's going to be that heavy dash line just above the 2 if you're using the slim arc. And I'm going to go there. So I'm going to come to about there, slide up, you know, and I have to say, when I'm working, sometimes it does become a little bit of a contest of how many rulers can I balance on my quilt. Up, down, okay, and then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little extra to this. So I'm going to go down 2 from there, because I want a little bit of a division between the very top of the spire and that negative space. And in fact, I think what I want to do is add a whole nother spire. So let's see. I may want to go up just a little bit higher for effect. Let's go to, I think I'm going to take it right up to there. So I've got that lined up right in the center through the ruler. And I'm actually auditioning this again for a really wide border on a king-size quilt on all sides. And so I may want to take this up just a little higher. You can always adjust this design, which is why I like using the arcs to do these cathedral types designs, because you can make them as deep or as not deep, as shallow as you want to, depending on the thickness of your border. So now I have my spires in place. The next thing is going to be this little side part right here, which is going to come from the cleavage down by the first. So right about here, and it's going to come up and around, and it's going to be mirrored on both sides, just like here. And then we can start working on dividing what we're going to fill and not fill for our positive and negative space. Okay, so let's come down just a little. Go back to this middle, line up, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the ½ inch marks and the top quarter. I've got that lined up right there. So now I'm going to travel the rest of the way down and back. Come all the way down. And again, I want that nice thick line. I want this to pop. If I'm going to put this much work into a fancy border, we want to see it. Show off, baby. All right, and now we're going to slide all the way back here, and then we're going to go all the way over to the other side, and then we're going to repeat that same arc. Okay, so now you can see that we have our high peak all set up, and we have our sides all done. And our next step is going to be starting over at the end, and we're going to add our filler and also our last few little registration marks in our slim arc. We'll then move to the next area, and here I have horizontal lines, and then towards the top I simply have one arc to separate it for negative and positive quilting, and then I'll just keep moving all the way across. Now what I did on the drawing is I alternated these small arcs, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do that as well in the quilt up. So the stitching order is going to be, I'm going to start right up here, and I'm going to come in with my 1/4 inch echo inside and go 1, 2, 3, travel down and up, and then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to put my secondary arc in for negative space, and then we're going to go into the fill. 1, 2, 3, stop, down, come up, stop, line up, get that nice and lined up, and I want to go right to the sewing edge because we want the echo to be a 1/4 inch away. Okay, come down, 1, 2, 3, travel that ditch up a ways, stop there, bring back the narrow, line that up where it needs to be, and I'm using the 3-inch mark. I'm going to line that up. I'm going to put my inner echo right in and above. Stop, and now I am going to travel over to this area and put this section in. Okay, so our next section that we're going to be doing is putting in these straight lines, and then we're going to go ahead and put in the one arc for that one. We'll move over here, we'll put the marks in there, and then I'm going to show you how I just go up and echo my arc all the way up, and then we'll start back at the beginning and we'll go into the fill spots. Now we're going to come over here, and right in this space We're going to start and we're going to work our way right up these lines. So I'm going to line that up. And now I see I need to come over and up, go back in, line this up right on the center to the very first mark, down, 1, 2, 3, travel up, and I'll tell you, with this little bit of thicker ditch, you can really move a lot easier and not have to grab the ruler every time to travel the arc. Up, line up, and again I just go up one line every time at the bottom just to get that nice multiple arc. Travel up, slide the ruler, come back, 1, 2, 3, and that means I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and I want one more. And now I'm going to continue alternating these two all the way across towards the center. So the next thing I'm going to start doing is I'm going to sneak in here and I'm going to start with my filler. And in this case it's going to be a bit micro. And you make the decision how small you want to go, and just pick whatever edge to edge you like to do and go micro with it. So I'm going to sneak in here, I'm going to fill in here, I'm going to sneak down into this section, fill in this, I'm going to then fill in this, and then what I'll do is I'll sneak right over here and I'll just follow this line over, fill in, sneak up through, fill this, sneak down, fill that, and then go every other on the way across, and then sneak back down and just travel right across the quilt with the filler. Okay, so now our next step is going to be grabbing our adding machine tape, which you can get at any of your discount stores or office stores. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch it out. Now, if this were actually a border, this would be right here, the edge to my cornerstone, or I would be doing a corner treatment. But either way, this would be the edge of the body of the quilt. And then past here would be the continuation of the border. So I'm going to take my adding machine tape, go right to the edge. I would unwind it all the way down. You could go all the way down, or you could also, if you have a pretty nice space here, you could go right to the middle. And then you would cut this, Nice straight cut. And then what you would do is you would take this and start to fold it in half. Fold, crease it well. Now obviously if it's a long border, then you could use the pulls on your machine and kind of go around there to start folding it in half if you're by yourself. And I continue folding in half and creasing. Make sure you don't get any fullness at that fold line because you want these lines to be consistent. And you take it down to the width that you're going to want the next part of our design, which would be either piano keys, or in this case I want to do something a little more fancy, so what I think I'm going to do is 45-degree chevron. So now I've got that. I might hit it with an iron, and then what I would do is I would open it up, and I already have one ready here, and I would, right at each crease, use a Sharpie, and I'd put just a little registration mark. That way it's going to be nice and easy to see. And once I get to this point, I don't need this whole thing. I can actually just tear part of it off. And now I'm going to line it up, and now what I'm going to do from the edge all the way across the quilt is I'm going to put a little chalk mark right at the edge between the body and the border. Line that up, a little bit of chalk. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit lower so I can see it a little better. All the way over to the other edge. Our next step is going to be taking a ruler that has 45-degree marks on it, and what I want to do in this border is to have chevrons, just like this. Now we've marked our spacing, and so I'm going to take my 45-degree ruler, I'm going to line that up, and as I slide this way, I would look at this, and obviously it's going to all be tucked behind, so I don't need that mark. I'm going to come this way, making sure to keep my 45-degree right on the seam between the body and border. There's a little bit right there. And then I'm going to slide to the next mark and all the way down. I always double check to make sure my 45-degree here and right to the mark. Slide, line it up, 45-degree. Remember, we don't want Eileen showing up. Come this way, line it up, 45-degree. Okay, so that is the last full 45-degree mark I'm going to do. Now I have went ahead and marked this, but I wanted to show you the process of what I'm doing now. So I'm going to end here. I have all of this space in, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll do 45-degree chevrons all the way up past the middle, and then I'm going to end up with actually V's here in the middle. I decided to do something a little bit different. So what I'm going to do now to get this sun effect, I'm going to measure, I'm going to line this up horizontally here with my ruler. I am going to measure, and what I see from this full one to this full one is approximately 1 3/4 inches. And since this is my last full one, I'm going to take the ruler over and I'm going to mark from this area towards the center 1 3/4 inches, and I'm going to put a little line here. So line 1 3/4, 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 line 1 3/4. There's not enough room here for another full 1 3/4, so I'm good there. So now I count them. What I actually have now is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 7 marks, and the division is clear from here. And now what I do is my last full 45 ended right here. So what I'm going to do now is from here to the center, I know I have 7 marks to do here to get that beautiful sunset, sunrise effect. And what I'm going to do between here and here is make 6 even marks, even divisions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way. So I'll divide it and I'll play with that. It's not exact math unless you're a mathematician. If you're a mathematician and you want to use your calculator and get the perfect measurement and sit and get those marks, but I'm just going to eyeball it and get a nice 6 measurements, which is going to give me 7 lines toward the center. Then once I get that, then very simply what I do is I take the ruler and I just follow those marks and follow that mark, which is going to give me that beautiful sunrise effect that you see here. Now, because I went 7 lines out, I want to make sure that when I start on the other end and work my way into the center, I repeat that process. So everything's going to be mirrored really nice for this metropolis design. Okay, so now I have all of my radiating lines marked. I also have my 45 degrees out both ways. And my next step is bringing the machine over to the edge, and I'm going to start on the outer edge, and I'm going to go in and out, travel the line, in, out, up. So I'm going to double stitch each of these lines, which is going to make this design pop and be beautiful. So let's get that done. So now I'm going to quilt this just like each one was a ditch. Now on these longer straight lines, what's going to happen, I'm going to go down, I'm going to go up, is that because I'm on an angle, I put a little bit of the adhesive spray on the back, just so that way it's not going to slip. I place my ruler, I come down, pause, come up, travel up, place the ruler, come down, all the way to the crown, add a few extra stitches there to tie it in, come up, over, and come down. And I keep my ruler nice and straight on that straight line. When I come to a stop, because I have to extend the ruler, I make sure to slide my ruler down, reline it up, and then hit start again, so that way I can guarantee that I have a nice straight line. And I'm going to work my way all the way over to the center and then turn the ruler and head the other way, all the way across. All right, well, that's a wrap. So I hope you enjoyed spending time here at the Quilters Apothecary. We certainly enjoyed having you be with us and spend time with us. It's important when you invest time learning new skills. I hope everybody has a wonderful time quilting and trying this design out. Stay safe and be good to each other.